Another option that you may want to know how to configure on the autonomous AP is BandSelect. This one is something you can configure both from the CLI and from the graphical interface, so let's go to the graphical interface. BandSelect on the autonomous AP, just like on all the other systems, is configured in two places. The place where you configure the general options, and then the SSID where you enable or disable the option. So let's go first to the global configuration, and that's in Services and BandSelect. Here, you check BandSelect if you want to use it, and be careful on the autonomous AP, it's not enabled by default. And then you decide all these values, RSSI, cycle count, threshold, etc. So what are these? Client RSSI is the threshold below which you think that the client sending that probe request is not even trying to connect to you. Remember, probe request can be broadcast, so you hear probe request, but the signal is so faint that you don't think that the client is even trying to get to your SSID. So when the client probe is below the threshold, you just ignore the probe request. You don't try to retain the response, you just don't respond at all. Then there is the threshold and cycle counts. So what this is that cycle threshold is counting how long a probe burst is going to last. In other words, your client is going to scan, say, channel 1, then 2, 3, 4, etc. In channel 1, it's going to send maybe boom, boom, 2 probe requests, then wait for some response, and then move on. So what the timer cycle threshold does is to calculate how long that scanning threshold 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. is supposed to last. If you hear 2 probe requests on your channel, whatever the access point channel is, within 200 milliseconds, you consider that it's just the client trying to send bursts of probes within one discovery cycle of the entire channel range. But if you have 2 probes that are more than 200 milliseconds apart, you think that the client went through a first scan of all the channels and then didn't find the access point he was looking for and is going through a second scan cycle. So if the probes are more than 100 milliseconds apart, you know that this is a second scan. So you're going to decide how many scan cycles you want to wait before deciding that the client still comes back on this 2.4 radio, so it's definitely not going to the 5 GHz radio. So this is why you define both the cycle threshold, how long a cycle is supposed to last for discovering all the channels, and then also a cycle count to decide how many of those cycles do you wait until you decide that the client is not going to 5 gig, it keeps trying to discover the SSID on 2.4, and therefore you have to reply on 2.4 and let the client associate on 2.4. Then there are 2 other options, expire dual band and expire suppression, that decide how long you're going to keep memory of that client. Once it has associated to you or once it has moved away, how long you're going to decide the client should be remembered before deciding it doesn't matter anymore. So remember, BandSelect, not enabled by default and autonomous. Check, apply, and the first step is done. The next step is to go to Security and SSID Manager. Check your SSID, and if you go down here, there is this BandSelect option you see at the top that you can check. Of course, it only makes sense if your SSID is on both radios, right? Auto 31 in my case is only on one radio, so there is no need to enable BandSelect, it's useless. But for Auto 23, it's on both radios, so I can check the BandSelect option, click apply, and voila, BandSelect is active on Auto 23.